Okay. This is Dr. Harry Anderson. I'd like to address the question I often get about how much protein and how much fat a horse needs. It's not that easy to say because a lot of it depends on age, growth rate, activity level, pregnant or non-pregnant, how hard they're working. A lot of those things come into play. The protein level is much higher for a young horse, of course. The concentration of protein needs to be higher for a young growing horse than for an older mature horse that is idle especially. A horse that's working hard doesn't necessarily need more protein than one that's not working hard. On an adult horse, if you have good quality hay that's at least 12% or better in protein, that will probably take care of most horses. If they're trying to grow or trying to improve muscling or anything like that, then more protein will increase the rate at which they accomplish those things, especially in the young horse. Protein is very critical, and quality of protein is very critical in a young horse for developing muscle mass as they grow and mature. Where do they get their protein? They get it from the fiber. They get it from their roughage. Now you can go to the feed store and buy a lot of protein supplements. But first look at what you have at home. First look at the hay. If you're needing some more protein, if your horse doesn't have the muscling they need or you want on them, then you need to look at increasing the protein level of their hay. Look around and find a better quality hay because usually that's what's causing the lack of muscling in a horse. Now that's really what I go by in looking at horses and telling whether they need a little more protein is if they have the bulky muscle mass and they're looking good and athletic, they'll probably have enough protein in their program. But if they start to drop that top line, if they start to lose a little bit of that muscle mass through that rear quarter, then you need to add protein and you need to add some other micronutrients. But protein, so I'm not giving you an exact amount of protein, but you have to look at the horse and decide. Fat. Fat is a real key question. A lot of people want real high fat levels in their feeding programs. Really, that's not necessary. Animals make fat. They make fat from the starch and the fiber that they eat. So you don't have to be adding a lot of fat. In fact, real high fat levels, in my estimation, and based on experience and watching horses, it can be a negative rather than a positive. If you are looking at a feed, go to the feed store and start looking at a feed and you start comparing them based on fat level, you're kind of not looking at the right thing because an 8% fat product is not going to give you any better performance than a 5% fat product in my estimation of my experience. I go with more like 5%, maybe 6% at the very most, but you need to think in terms of the fact that the animal makes their fat from the fiber and from the starch that they eat from grain or hay, and don't think they have to get it all through the diet.